I want to make every sports fan a manager or a team owner. That's our mission as a company. And what they can do is exactly what an owner can do. They can trade on the market, so with actual money. You can trade players, and the value of the cards, they fluctuate based on many criteria, including the performance of the player, the scarcity of the card, and so on. It's really the performance of the player on the pitch that makes you good or not at the game. So if I have a direct deal with a player, I could do much more than what I do without having a direct relationship with the player through an agent. If you cannot feel the authenticity of the player, it doesn't make a good relationship. I've been working closely with Pique, with Serena Williams, with Mbappe. They are all genuine and authentic in the way they want to help. Serena Williams, she was sitting close to me when we negotiated a deal with the NBA. It was a very competitive deal. Michael Jordan was helping DraftKings and Serena Williams was helping us. She was like deeply committed to the vision. We knew that she could help us get those rights in the US in particular from the get-go. She delivered. That was awesome. And I have like many other stories where athletes helped us.
But before we dive in, if this is your first time on the channel, or if you're a regular viewer, please can you like, subscribe, and hit the bell. It allows us to keep delivering you amazing guests and, of course, create the best content. We thank you so much for your support, and time to get on with the show.
Nico, it is such a pleasure to have you in the studio, man. It is so much better doing it in person. We've been looking forward to this. We're slightly jealous of the shirt. We didn't realize that you were bringing this. We could have come too with shirts, but thank you for joining us, man.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited, and I'm a big supporter of the show. I'm a big listener, so yeah, I'm very excited to be here.
He's got many fans.
Yeah, imagine how many more fans I'd had if I wore stuff like that.
This is true. This
It'd
is
be amazing. Let's stop right at the beginning. Let's start with the story of Sorare. Can you give us a bit of the context around the business and how you've managed to create this company?
Yeah, I think, the origin story of the business is the intersection of my passion for sports. I've been a massive sports fan, massive collector, massive player, gamer, not player, and a new technology, so crypto, Web3, and so on. So I was just looking at I got into crypto in 15. And in 17, NFTs came in, right? And so I was big into Bitcoin for many, many reasons, right? And so it's bringing an alternative form of money. And I was like, okay, this technology can change other verticals. It's bringing digital property. How this is going to impact sports, right? And so I was like, okay, humans beings have been collecting for centuries, right? This is something we all do for a variety of reasons. We've been doing that in the physical world, and now we have a way to do it in the digital world. And this is the technology enabling it. This is the technology that brings authenticity, security, basically digital property, right? And so I was, okay, this is going to be a business that's going to be 10 times bigger than physical collecting in the world of sports, right? Because just the inherent properties of these goods are much, much stronger than the physical one. It's much easier to trade. It's much easier to authenticate. It's much easier to everything, right? So you miss the tangibility of the good, but in its digital form, you have other stuff that are much, much, much stronger. And so I was like, okay, this can be like a massive, massive business. But if we bring utility to it that goes beyond collecting, because in the physical world it's just static, right? Like you let your cards in your album, right? Then you can build a sports empire, and that's what got me excited, because building a business is so hard that I wanted to have this ambition to build something massive. And so at this intersection of collecting and gaming, so collect the cards, play with the cards, we got very excited with my partner Adrien, who's the CTO of the company, and that's the origin story. Basically, the intersection of my passion and a new technology enabling new things.
Okay, I love that. Completely see the vision. Then you go, well, we need to kind of create the first versions. And then you think, well, how do we get the players on board? How did you get the first initial players/products created and the players onboarded?
Yeah, so everything, from the first day, we were like, okay, everything we do is going to be officially licensed, because I want the authenticity to see the real name of the player, the real face of the player, the real jersey. And for that, you need to have agreements. But the problem with sports is in an industry where the last 50 years, you had 2-3 companies that managed to build a a real portfolio in gaming and collectibles. You have Electronic Arts with video games. You have Panini and Topps with physical collectibles, and that's pretty much it, right? So I knew that it's a conservative industry, and it's going to be very hard. So I wanted to prove that we are building amazing products that can be value accretive for them as organizations. And so I wanted to start, and we had no resources back in the days. Like, it was just like few thousands of our personal money with our co-founder. So we were looking for leagues that were like kind of reasonable, right? And so like I built a pipeline of dozens of leagues, and like a sales pipeline, like trying to progress some of this conversation. And we went with the Belgian league, and like the Belgian league was our first deal basically. And so it's of course a very long story. So basically reaching out to the intern on LinkedIn, and so the intern was like, okay, let's do a 15-minute call.
You actually reached out to the intern?
I mean, it was the only one responding to me at the league. so like he got back and see, well, yeah, let's do a call. And instead of taking the call, of course I took the train, went to Brussels. Like, he was like very surprised to see me, like managed to spend time with the head of legal, who was also the head of commercial at the league during this day, and convinced, and we had no product. It was late 18 back in the day, so it was just a short presentation, and so managed to convince them to open the conversation. 2 months later, long story short, like we closed the first deal with the Belgian league, launched the private beta of the product with the Belgian league, and just did the first dozens, the few car sales. Like, the beginning was with just them, like just the Belgian league.
What does a deal look like then? How does that structure work for the Belgian league deal?
So the structure of the deals remain the same across the years and across the leagues, even when growing the business. Basically, it's we didn't innovate that much there. Like, it was a mix of a minimum guarantee for them, and then royalties. The innovation for them is
Did you have money to pay the minimum guarantee?
So the few $1,000s were from our own pockets, Adrien and I. Like, we had, like, our pre-seed round was not closed, and so it was just our personal money to try something. Again, like, we've been lucky that the Belgian league was reasonable, and that was a deal that we could afford. But that's where we started. And yeah, the structure of the deal, minimum guarantees, royalties. I mean, the one big thing that is very exciting for these leagues is that in the old world of physical collecting or even video gaming, like, when an asset is sold, that's why you collect the royalties, and that's pretty much it. And with Web3, when the asset is resold, even 5 years later, even if it's outside of my platform and it's resold on eBay, OpenSea, whatever platform, that you can still collect a royalty as an IP owner, right? And so that traceability and infinite revenue stream on the secondary market is something that is getting them very excited.
So let's be really clear at this point, just so everyone understands. When you're doing this deal, this first deal, what are the assets?
You mean the assets that we get?
Yeah, that you get, and what are you creating?
Yeah,
well
so we are creating
fans?
cards representing athletes, so Belgian league athletes in this case, and we are selling them only through auctions. That's early 19, and these cards, you can play them in a fantasy sports game. So yeah, that's basically the core of the product. Like, so basically I want to make every sports fan a manager or a team owner. That's our mission as a company, right? Like, so every sports fan is talking about that, and like, we know they are all commenting on such decisions, and I want to build a place where they can do that, and where, like, being a team owner or manager is not reserved to an elite of billionaires, right? But is accessible to everyone, and what they can do is exactly what an owner can do. They can trade on the market, so with actual money, right? So you can trade players, and the value of these cards, they fluctuate based on, it's a market, right? Like, so based on many criteria, including, of course, the performance of the player, the scarcity of the card, and so on.
Who sets that price point?
It's a market, so we are selling everything through auctions. So it's supply and demand, right? And then and then you can play with these cards on fantasy competitions. So basically, it's really the performance of the player on the pitch that makes you good or not at the game, right? So if Mbappe is doing a hat trick, he's gonna get ranked like 100 on the games, which is the best mark, and you're gonna be good on the leaderboard, and you're gonna win stuff, right? And there's real money that you can win on the game, like in real football. So basically, it's you have all the hats. You are an owner, you are a coach, you are a player, you are a scout, because you need to be able to detect the next star as well. So you have all the hats that you could have on an actual club, basically.
So when you do a deal with a league, do you get all the players' rights beneath them? Like, do the leagues own the rights, or do the players own the rights?
So, I mean, today we have the biggest portfolio in sports gaming. It's more than 300 partners. So we have more depth even than EA, because we have the NBA, we have the Premier League, we have like all the top football leagues, the NBA, the MLB, and more. And so it's very fragmented in football in particular. So there's some nuances to the answer of your question. I would say that if you take US sports, basically the setup of a deal is that you have on one side the league, let's say the NBA, and on the other side the union, let's say the NBA, so it's NBPA, NBA Player Association, right? So you get the rights of the players through the union, okay? So the right to use the face of the player, the player name, and then through the league you have the jersey, the name of the team, and so on, right? So, and the money is flowing to the players through the union, okay? So the union is taking a minimum guarantee, and then they have a repartition, and they get the money back to the players. That's US sports. I'm trying to generalize, but basically that's how it works in the US. In football, it's a bit different. Most of the time, you have the rights. The money is flowing through the teams. Okay, so you're gonna get a deal with the league. The league is gonna split the money to the teams, and the teams is gonna split the money to the players. Right. So that's how the money would flow in football.
Which one do you think is better? If you were to advise a governing body, what would you say to them, knowing all that you know now?
I think it has value, like to have like a union on one side and a league on the other side. Like they represent interest of the teams and the players in a way that is probably more close to it, more close to them, right? But I would say that as a business, it's also good to have centralization, because I have one contract for the Premier League, for instance. So the setup of the rights, like who owns the rights, is different. So as a business, I would say as a business, it's better to have centralization. But for the stakeholders, like the teams and the unions, it's probably better to have it this way, like they do in the US.
Which league was the hardest to get?
I would say the Premier League. It's
Really?
the last one. Yeah. So I think it's normal. Like they are sitting at the top of football, if you look at basically any metric, and so they have this privilege to look at to be passionate. They have only 10 partners in the world. So, and the youngest partners after Sorare is Electronic Arts, which is a very, very old company. And then you look at the list, it's public on the website. There's 10 of them, maybe 11 if I missed something recent. But so they are very, very conservative in who they associate the image of the league with, and I respect that very much.
What was the tipping point in getting them to partner with you?
I think it was the addition of course, like seeing the product growing, the user base growing, the revenue growing, and seeing also like the fact that like other partners were like eating that new category, like eating that lunch, and that they should be part of it. I guess that was one, and generally speaking, in the world of sports, I believe that media rights, they have hit a ceiling, and that the teams and the leagues, they need to diversify and open new revenue streams and grow revenue streams. And we've seen that in the US. So there's many great stories in the US with Fanatics, for instance, and the relationship with the leagues and how they grew together as partners, and DraftKings and many others, where the leagues would take an equity stake and would generate hundreds of millions of dollars of value because of a deep partnership, right? And so this is something that has been not a playbook, but something of inspiration for me. And so the top leagues, they own parts of the company, and we want to grow together on the long run.
Do they understand the value you bring when you have the first conversation?
I think that so you need to prove, because it's a new category. And as I said, if you look at the last 50 years, there have been close to 0 new categories in gaming and collectible in sports, right? And so you need to educate. And so I spent a lot of time in the first few years of the company talking about, we're going to help them reach new audiences, or we're going to help them develop a new revenue stream and do it in a way that is new. And one thing that is truly new for us is this idea of digital ownership and digital property, because in the old world, when you buy something that is officially licensed, when the license is over, in the digital world, you don't have the thing anymore, right? Like let's say EA, you build something in the FIFA Ultimate Team mode, you open a pack, you buy a pack, at the end of the season, your cards, they are done, it's over, right? And in our case, it's different. You buy something, you truly own it, like you would own a physical collectible. And so we needed to, build the contracts also in a way that is very different from what has been done in the past.
I think a lot of businesses are 80-20, where 80% of the demand concentrates at 20% of the supply.
Yeah.
When you look at the business, does everyone not just want 2 or 3 leagues? To what extent does it matter having the long tail?
Yeah, it's interesting because of course, the top leagues concentrate most of the revenue, but if you look at our kind of VIP users, or users that spend a lot of money in the product, there's users, they are very deep into sports, they are very deep into data, and they love to scout. And so a big part of the enjoyment of the game is looking at the Belgian league, looking at Argentinian clubs, and looking for who's going to be next, right? And so I think it matters a lot for the fun of the product, for the retention, not only of these cohorts of big spenders, but also some even free users.
Is the game, would you say, is it accessible to every football fan then? Because what we have here is not a freemium fantasy league like the Premier League has, which is hugely successful, over 12 million players a year globally. You're talking about something which has a real financial element, but it also has an educational element. You probably need to know a little bit about NFTs, maybe cryptocurrencies, maybe blockchain, maybe digital asset ownership. How do you go about educating the fan base to get them really enthused by the product that you're creating?
So, a few principles. From the first day, I told my investor, my team, and everyone, I'm not in the business of selling a technology, selling an NFT, selling crypto. Actually, I don't care. I'm pragmatic. I just believe that this technology is bringing stuff that are truly unique and truly new to sports fans. The fact that they can truly own something digital, they can trade it, they can use it across the seasons, all those things. But I'm not in the business of educating about this. I want the product, the experience, to make them understand these benefits. So I abstracted all the complexities of crypto, Web3, whatever you call it. So you have a partnership with Stripe. Most of the users that join today, they don't even know it's an NFT or it's a blockchain underneath. They don't need to know about that. So that's number one. Number two, and that's part of simplifying the complexity and simplifying the overall experience as well, we're probably the only big company in crypto Web3 without a token. So that's Coinbase also without a token. But if you look at the main exchange, the main games, there's tokens everywhere, which is adding a lot of complexity to the management of the business and a lot of complexity for the user. So we don't have that. And maybe to answer more directly your question about the education element, and so we do have it's free to play. So you can start the game opening pack of free cards, and getting started for nothing, and then climb the ladder basically. But you can start from the bottom.
And we'll talk about this as later. But you started in football.
Yeah.
Correct. So and the focus was football.
Yeah.
How did you start prioritizing the various leagues around that you went into?
to be transparent, like I wanted like all the top 20 leagues in the world of football. Like that was my goal, because as I said, like I knew that my business couldn't reach the scale I wanted without the top leagues, but at the same time that my products would be good only if I got the long tail as well, like because part of the fun and football is very fragmented, and so I wanted that, I needed that, and so I just got all in building that and going relentlessly around all this potential partners until I got them all. And I mean, I had to be pragmatic on some of these geographies, like because the league was kind of conservative, and so starting by clubs, like in Spain, for instance, or in Germany, like I would start by closing deals with a few clubs and showing the benefits to the clubs, having the clubs talk to the league, and then closing a deal with the league. That's how I got to the biggest leagues in the early days.
Can I ask, when agents start seeing people buying their players' assets, I don't imagine that they're that chilled. When you look at the agent landscape today, it's something that we navigate doing the show. What is broken and what is great about it?
Look, I think that this is something that can amplify our experience, right? Like, so if I have a direct deal with a player, I could do much more than what I do without having a direct relationship with the player through an agent or not. I think what's important to me is that I have an access to the player, like a direct access to the player, because
do agents block that? They are very protective.
Sometimes, and in that case, we don't do the deal, because if you cannot have direct interaction with the player, if you cannot feel the authenticity of the player, like, you know, it doesn't make a good relationship. I've been working closely with Pique, with Serena Williams, with Mbappe, with like many sports icons. They are all helping in different ways, but they are all genuine and authentic in the way they want to help, right? And that you need to have as a founder, I believe, a direct relationship to get there. So I mean, agents are doing very important job for athletes, but I think in this case, and in particular with early stage or startups in particular, they need to be a direct relationship.
Tell us about, you've done an amazing job raising money from athletes and getting them involved right from the beginning. Tell us about like the first few conversations that you had to bring some of these athletes on board.
So the very first athlete we brought was Gerard Pique, and I think, I mean,
that's a big whale to get first.
It's a big whale to get first. Yeah.
How did you reach out to him? Like, what was that?
So he's been introduced through a fund that Gerard was an LP in the fund, and so that's how we got introduced. And like, I mean, you know Gerard, right? Like he wants to move lines. He wants to change, like he loves category creators. He loves to challenge the status quo, and he has been an entrepreneur in mobile gaming as well in the past. So there's a lot of things that we knew that there would be something, and then it was just like 2 hours conversation with him to pitch him about the vision, to tell him about the product and how we could help, and we just clicked basically.
Can I ask you, when it comes to like player investments, a lot of founders want them, and it's been a rising trend for the players, and then it's kind of brought about the question of to what extent do players actually add value? When you advise founders today who say, hey, do they actually add value? What do you say to them, and how do you get the best out of sporting talent on your cap table?
I would say number one, quantity over quality. I would say number two, authenticity over fame, and I would say number three, direct relationship between the founder and or the executive team and the athlete. I think there are three important rules, right? If you just thinking of quality over quantity, what does that mean? Is that their intelligence? Is that it's Mbappe and they're the number one in their category? What is quality? I think you need to understand why the athlete is here, what's in it for them in their personal journey, right? What they would get basically from this relationship, and how they could help you as a founder.
What do you think is in it for them?
I think number one is education, so learning about VC, learning about funding a company. and also helping also, lots of them, they want to show that they are more than athletes, they can have an impact, and so they want to feel that they can help, right? And so you just need to precisely identify how they can help, and I worked with lots of athletes and they all helped in different ways. Like Serena Williams, she was sitting close to me when we negotiated a deal with the NBA. Pique...
Pause. That's like dropping an amazing jewel. So Serena Williams is sitting next to you when you're doing a deal with the NBA. What happens?
So, it was a very competitive deal. It was in 22, like the space was very hot. Like we had all the big companies in the US against us. And so Michael Jordan was helping DraftKings and Serena Williams was helping us to get a deal with the NBA. And so like we are like a European company. So we are kind of, I guess, like in the second division in the mind of decision makers in the NBA, in the NFL, and in the MLB, and so like we needed to build a solid roster of VCs or athletes, to pitch the vision with us, and so she was like deeply committed to the vision, and so she was in for that, and so when we partnered together, that was one of the reasons why we knew she could help, and she just delivered on this, and so that was crazy, like not only with the league but also with the union, like taking course with Tamika, who was leading the league back in the union, back in the day. So yeah, that's. But yeah, we knew that she could help us get this rights in the US in particular from the get-go. She delivered. That was awesome, and I have like many other stories where athletes helped us in very different fronts.
What's your favorite other story?
This one is of course like very special because of her and because of the NBA with an amazing partner. I think Antoine Griezmann is also one of the very first athletes that got involved, and he was like from the very first, very active in the product, like he's a big gamer, and he was helping us, shape the product, like giving us feedback on the algorithm, or we are basically rating the players, and so lots of other footballers like who are doing that, but he was one of the very first. And for me, it was, these are amazing memories because there's nothing more that I love than talking to the users, and I still do it every single day, like taking feedback from users that are actually athletes when you are building a sports business. And in that case, a French world champion, like it's very humbling.
A lot of people think that the US and say that the US athletes are just like years ahead in terms of how they think about investing, being an entity themselves, a corporate themselves, versus the European athletes, which are much more not amateur or pedestrian, but just kind of a little bit earlier in their journey and understanding.
Yeah.
Is that what you've experienced?
Yeah, there's definitely a big gap. Like we are years ahead in Europe compared to the US. Like in the US, you have unions that are organizing Founders Day, where founders would come and like pitch how they build the company to the rosters of players, and with a big Q&A afterwards and so on. So this is something that has been existing for years. There are also lots of success stories of athletes who made, like Michael Jordan made most money out after his career than on the court, and there are many stories like this in the US. We are building the stories in Europe, but yeah, it's a bit lagging behind, and I think that unions and leagues and teams would benefit, like to open up a bit more, for the benefit of the athletes.
I would love to buy a team and start. I think every team in the Premier League should have a venture fund, number one.
Yeah.
$20 million venture fund to invest in amazing companies that are adjacent to their core business. And I don't understand why they don't have like financial wellness platforms. And what I mean by that is like exactly like the unions there offer a curated discovery platform for their players to see good companies. Why clubs don't do that? Like, hey, we know we're paying you an incredibly large amount of money.
Yeah.
Let us help you in your financial discovery.
Yeah. I mean, that would be amazing. I know that the Premier League has a venture fund that is pretty recent, and so they start investing in companies. I don't know exactly like the structure and the setup.
We've had the conversation with the NBA and the NFL ones.
So the NBA is probably the oldest one. Yeah. So it has been existing for years. At the Premier League, I know that Dharma Mistry was a board member, an ex-VC, has been very involved.
We've spoken with Dharma.
With the fund, and so he's amazing, and so I don't know the size, the setup, and so on, but I know they are starting investing in early stage companies. Yeah.
But again, I think, you know, if you're looking at those new leagues and those new markets, let's move it away from football. How did you then go out into the US and try and build the relationships in an NBA and in a hockey, for example?
Yeah, I think, look, from the first day, I was like, okay, we are sitting at the intersection of two markets that exist and are already big in the US, collecting things, collecting memorabilia, and fantasy sports. So there are two existing categories. So we're bringing with this unique twist of digital property, like you can own your stuff, you can trade your card, you can use it across the seasons and so on. And I was like, okay, I need to win in the US to realize the ambition we have for this company. So I think that to get there, I wanted to prove that with football, like we are on the journey of building something massive, and then it all accelerated with then like the NFT boom, and then the crypto boom in late 21, 22, where our business was becoming sizable, and they were like, okay, we need to open this new category, and then we were like, okay, no, like it's going to be very competitive, so we need to raise money. So we raised a large Series B in order to be competitive, to get this right. So it all came a bit together and very fast.
Did they get it in ways that you didn't have to explain to the European markets? Those leagues, they understand how to integrate this.
Look, I think I don't want to be harsh on European leagues. Like I think they got it the same way. I just think that US leagues, they came slightly after into our category, because we just started with football, because football, it's our roots, and that's the biggest sport in the world. So that's why we decided to start there. And then like the market was like a bit more mature, I would say, if I can use that word, back in the days when the US leagues like started to take notice. Basically.
Have you found the fans different to work with? Fans of football in Europe are very specific in how they interact maybe with their clubs. Fans in the US are quite used to spending more money in and around the experiential side. How have you managed to tap into that? Has that been different? Yeah,
so I mean, starting with the leagues, and then I will get to the fans. I think the leagues what's a bit different is that they, like the NBA, when you look at the MLB, they had experience in taking equity positions in certain partners, taking more risk, even if it was a new category where even the regulatory topics are not totally sorted out. Like they know how to take a long journey with a company, with the ups and the downs and so on, and so that's what makes it a bit easier, I would say, to deal with in the beginning. When it comes to the fans, I mean, as I said, like in the US, you have these two markets that are already massive, and so yes, I mean the LTV of a US fan is much higher than a European fan, and you have less education to make as well, because fantasy sports, as you mentioned Fantasy Premier League, but the market is very fragmented. You have like a lot of local players in France. So you have Fantasy Premier League in the UK, even if it's a global game, but in France you have a small local player, same in Spain, same in Germany, and so on. So the market is not as mature as it is in the US, where you have basically free-to-play products like Yahoo Fantasy and so on. And then you have daily fantasy sports with FanDuel and DraftKings, which are just by themselves two massive categories, right? So less education, more maturity, I would say.
I'm permanently in awe of how huge fantasy football is. Like,
I'm an addict.
Are you?
Yeah. The day after my daughter was born, I played my assistant manager's chip on fantasy football, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, we thought you'd have a week off." I was like, "That's not happening." But it's great because it gives you a level of competition with your mates that actually you think shows how good you are at something, but it doesn't. And then when everyone does badly, they go, "Oh, I forgot."
Exactly.
I forgot to do it.
I hope your wife doesn't hear that.
She plays too.
She plays too?
Yeah,
in the same
in the same league.
Wow.
Yeah, she's beaten me before.
You raised a lot of money. How much did you raise?
So total, we raised close to 450 million euros in primary, and then we've done some secondaries along the way.
And then, so when you raise 450 in primary, does it not get to a stage where you can kind of buy the assets? Like you just have this war chest of cash that you can come in and win markets with cash alone?
I mean, first of all, like we raised for that specific reason, right? Like because like when it comes to scaling a team and so on, like I'm very, very. I believe that you cannot just force the growth of an organization and add people and that would add like value to the company. So like
isn't that the VC model?
so yeah. So no. Like when we raised like 400 million euros, like we were 17 in the team, and 1 year later, like we were still less than 100, right? So I always have been very clear that our model could be very efficient without being hundreds of people in the company. So the money was really to be used, number one, to get these rights, which were becoming very expensive, right? And I wanted to be able to compete. I knew that I have the better team, the better product, and so on, but I wanted to have the financial resources that some big gaming companies in the US have.
Yeah, why were they getting more expensive? Was it purely demand going up?
It was competition. So you are buying a good that is unique. Like you are going to the NBA, they're not going to sell two goods. It's going to be one category. It's going to be called like fantasy sports with digital collectibles, whatever you call it. And there's going to be one company and you just have like 3, 4, 5, 6 massive companies that are bidding against you. So either you want to be part of that conversation or not, right? So as simple as that, you know, you need to be in and you need to have the strength to compete. So that was the main reason. And then like, you know, having the ability to have a war chest, you're creating a new category, you don't know what's going to happen along the way. You have regulatory hurdles that may happen, like it happened for many category creators.
So do you think it's more important to have, let's say, 100 million to put in front of an NBA or Serena Williams on the side, actually adding something different? Because is it all about money?
It's different because like when you know, like when you are buying like something like the NBA right or the Premier League, like again, like it's you know, it's something that is unique, and you know that it's not going to be like 2 or 3 companies getting these rights. So you need to have that to have your product. Like it's as simple as that, you know. So you need to find the right balance, because if the deal, you know, at the end is too skewed towards us as a company or the partner, like, you know, like at the end there's no business, right? When it comes to athletes, of course, like, you know that some athletes can change the trajectory of a company, can accelerate different parts, being like product or BD or whatever. But, you know, like it's not going to kill your product if you don't have, right? So
Messi put money in, he's an investor.
Yeah.
That's a needle mover, exposure-wise.
So yeah, it helps, but you know, like I think we always a bit overestimate the impact that an athlete could have on user growth and underestimate the impact an athlete can have on other parts of the company building.
When they invest, do they agree to post on Instagram, post on Twitter? Is that part of the investment?
It depends. It depends. For some of them, it was part of it, but I found that what's more. So basically, most of the value came from stuff that were not, you know, in the contracts, and that just came organically, naturally, because the athlete loved the product, because we built a great relationship with the athlete, and so they were doing things that, you know, they were not supposed to do or that were not on the contracts, and that's why I was, you know, spending time earlier in this interview talking about authenticity, and like you need to have at least that really get what you do, that love what you do, that love the vision, that like you as a founder, and that and just embark on a journey. That's why you got most of the value.
Which league was the most expensive in terms of the upfront payment?
So, I mean, this is where like my contractual obligations are a bit preventing me to be as transparent as I would like. But I think what we are very proud is to have, as I said, like a business where, of course, you are generating more money from the big leagues, but where we are still generating like a very meaningful amount of money from like what we would call like tier 2 or tier 3 leagues. Not only that, but also helping them grow their audience because like there's dozens of thousands of fans that, you know, got to know the Japanese league, the Korean league, the Belgian league, the Dutch league because of our product, you know, because they started maybe with the Premier League or whatever and then, you know, like they got to know other leagues and watch games.
Do you have the Saudi league?
We don't have them yet.
If you're watching.
That is something that could
PIF.
happen. That is something that hopefully will happen in the future. Yeah.
Do you think the Saudi league has sustainability?
I think that they have a time horizon that is very long, from what I understand. I believe that they brought amazing talents, and you know, in the early days, we were like, it's only going to be people that are about to retire and so on. And we can see that they managed to attract more and more younger talents in the league. I think they know that they need to be stronger on raising talent locally as well and building all the infrastructure for this. I think they are starting to do this, but these are things that take years, and so we will. Yeah, I mean, they will see the benefits, I guess, in the mid to long term.
Solve a debate for us. Everyone is quite excited for the World Cup in the US and like, it will sustain purely MLS, like domestic football leagues. I question the sustainability of them in the US. Am I wrong? How do you think about it?
Look, I think that it's the MLS, like the level of the MLS is really growing, and you think that 5 years ago you would see young Latin American talents like from Argentina, Brazil, like going from Brazil directly to Portugal or France or Europe basically, and that was the goal, right? And now you are seeing competition from top MLS clubs that get to attract this like very good talent, like 19, 20 years old, and raise the level of the league, and they take that as a really competitive destination when you compare to, of course, not the Premier League, but like some other leagues in Europe. So I think the level is growing. I think there's room for a league with with massive success in the US. I don't know if you see a particular blocker, but I'm pretty bullish on the MLS.
You've done a deal with the MLS, correct?
We have a deal with the MLS and with the MLS Union, yeah.
Did they talk to you in a different way to other football leagues about their ambitions and their plans?
I think they are very focused on growing their audience, growing the user base. And I think what they did with Apple is very smart because they have global exposure, and as a fan, you have one place to watch all the games, which is something that is killing us in Europe in certain league. And as a French fan, I can tell you it's killing the French league product because of the fragmentation of the rights.
But that's a great point on questioning its sustainability, because that deal is in place because Messi joined the league and he's even a part owner of that deal. So if Messi leaves, does Apple still keep that deal?
Of course that helps. I think I think that they need to prove that they can build stories around the league, and this is something that it remains to be seen. That's true, and it's a big challenge, But when you watch the Premier League, you have so many side stories, like you have like all the Londonian derbies. You have Manchester United, Manchester City. I mean, there's many sub stories to the series history, and it's also like the ability from the league to market the product. I was watching an ad the other day from Sky when they launched the first season of the Premier League. I mean, they just get it, like they know how to get into it's more than sport, it's culture, and the way that they've been telling stories and marketing the product has been just amazing, from the very first season, from the very first day, and I think that's what remains to be proven for the MLS, but they have the right talent, the right people.
We talked about like the fragmented media rights quite a lot, and obviously as a French football fan, you've got to deal with that a lot at the moment. How much does the media rights landscape influence the opportunities that you have
I think it's an opportunity because I think like smart leaders at all leagues recognize that it's going to be a challenge to keep on growing media rights, and I think we are seeing that like if you are flat compared to the previous cycle, it's already a win for like most of the leagues right now. So
why is that? If you're flat, it's a win.
I think like if you talk about football, like the most of your audience is still local, right? And at some point there's a ceiling of the number of fans that you have and the money that you can take from their pockets. And I think that with the current price tags that we have in these markets, you have limitations. So
do you think there is, or do you think that's actually just a lack of innovation in the mindsets of the monetization methods that we use? Like you can think about player data, the ownership of player data, how we sell player data to gambling companies. There are so many different.
That's I was talking if you keep the existing model. With the existing model, you have a ceiling. But if you break everything, let's say you give everything for free, right? Like all the games worldwide, and you monetize in a different way. Maybe you can do much more than what you are doing right now. Maybe not, right? But there are innovative approach that needs to be tested. I think that works for smaller leagues for sure. But in that sense, I think that distribution is going to matter a lot, and getting eyeballs, and that's why I'm very excited for the MLS approach with Apple, even if they just got started, so it needs to take years for the stories to take shape and so on. But yeah, today with the current model, there's a clear ceiling, and they need to look at more avenues, more opportunities to market the rights, the IP that they have.
What do you think the media rights distribution looks like in a few years? Like, I think, we see this concentration of attention towards the English Premier League, but like a worsening of leagues in France and Spain and Italy. So you'll see the EPL go up, and you'll see more pressure on the alternative leagues. Do you think that's going to continue to?
I think it will continue unless the leagues work hard on the product and change the product and make a better product. And I think that's.
What would you do if you're in charge of them?
First of all, like you need to have competitive balance. I think that's that's part of what makes the Premier League an amazing product, is that you have balance, right? Like because the way the TV rights are split between the clubs is fair, and so you have you have like a good balance between the bottom of the league and the top of the league. So that's number one, and I think that an approach that is taken by some leagues is okay. We need to help the top clubs with like skewing more money to them so that they are competitive in the Champions League and so on. But in the end, it's just weakening the domestic league, and with a weaker domestic league, like they don't face competitive teams on week-over-week basis, and it's hard for them to be good on the Champions League stage or the European League or whatever. So I think that's one point. Number two is just like be innovative in the product itself, right? Like so, and in the way they distribute the product, and picking partners that can help them grow in that direction. Partners like TV partners, but also like companies like us that can help us bring more engagement to the product. So of course, like we are, I believe like we are doing a great job to grow the audiences, but also to better retain and engage the audiences of European leagues and in the US too.
Is women's sport a big opportunity for you?
So we talked about that period in 21-22 when like everything was accelerating, and we decided to go hard after the NBA, the MLB, and so on. So US sports. Right now we have this portfolio of more than 300 partners. It's all be built in the last 2 to 3 years, and so no, I'm the opportunity is massive. But when I will do it, I want to make sure that we are world class as building it, and right now we need to solidify and concentrate, build better products for the partners that we have before doing more, basically. So it's actually it's beyond women's sports. It's just like being great at what we are doing, improving the free-to-play experience, improving different parts of the product before getting elsewhere.
What are the biggest challenges been over the last few years?
I think there are like I would say there are three big categories. At the end of the day, you are as good as your people. So it's of course hiring and hiring fast because of the acceleration we've seen in 21, 22. I think so. That's hard. And hiring when you are creating a new category, I think it's even harder because your tendency is to go after adjacent products, let's say fantasy football, let's say collectibles, and to take top executive from there. But actually, sometimes they have hard coded in their mind, something that's you want kind of disrupt that, right? Like so and so it's much easier to grow people from inside, from within, rather than getting outside. And so I think that's one that has been one big challenge, because every mistake is so costly. You spend 6 months hiring and onboarding a key leader. They would bring some of they would start building their team, and so when it's not working out, like you've lost a year. So I think that has been one big challenge. I think the second big challenge has been regulations, because when you're creating a new category, like you are not you don't have a box for you, right? And so we've seen that with many category creators like Uber, Airbnb, and so on. And so you need to navigate all this. You need to educate. You need to explain who you are. We from the first day we had a very proactive approach, very different from other companies, like willing to talk, willing to engage, willing to modify the product, and I think that served us. So in France, we had a new law, which is now a framework for games where you can monetize your items, which is exactly the type of categories we've built, right? And hopefully it's going to be then expanded into Europe. And so I think that would be amazing to institutionalize the category, have like bigger gaming studios, like build similar products. So this has been a challenge, because when you build a company, you love your users, you love building products, but you are not doing that to spend time talking to ministers or lawmakers, like, and that it's a bit you're afraid of doing that in the early days.
You mentioned regulators there. The US betting market is new, but potentially massive. How do you think about the next few years for US betting markets and what that looks like?
I think that the market is already massive. I think that we've been trying to build something that is very distant from betting, in the sense that in our case, you buy a card that you keep for many years, right? That you cannot lose when you enter a specific tournament or game week. And so, but at the same time, betting is about predicting the future, and fantasy sports is about predicting the future as well. So I think we can tap into the human need and psychology of willing to predict, but in a way that is much healthier than betting, because you're like with betting you have this psychology, or I make a bet, I lose, and I'm going to try to make my bet back with the next bet, which is very different psychology from a product where you are just being a roster of cards and then engaging in a competition to build your legacy, right? So I think we can tap into like that need, that behavior with a much healthier product.
How much is Panini worth?
I think it's a few billion, but it's a private company. I would say like between 3 and 4.
Between 3 and 4 billion.
And Tops?
I think Tops is probably higher than that.
Tops are still partner of the Premier League.
So Tops is a partner of the Premier League, yeah.
And so when you on that deal, there's no conflict. You and Tops work together.
My category is at this intersection of a fantasy sports game where you can trade cards, basically. Right. So there's
very clear boundaries.
It's very clear. Yeah. And the leagues are very good at building categorizing and building the right boundaries. Yeah.
Which league do you not have that you'd most like to have?
I'm going to be consistent with what I just said before. We're very happy with the portfolio we have. It's the biggest one in sports gaming. I think at some point we are interested in two things. Make sure that any new, existing or new dominant league in football is part of our roster of partners. we are a French company. We don't have the French league as a partner. We have the
Really?
we have the Premier League. We have the
What?
We have the Spanish league.
Are you serious?
we have the German league. We have the Italian league, but not the French league. So hopefully,
Why?
so it's a combination of things, not good timing, and then like divergence on certain things.
But sorry, right now they need more revenue in here. They need to make up for the deficiencies in their broader media play. So a company like yours coming and saying, "Here, we'll pay you for access to your IP, your license." What?
We've had conversations in the past. We are having conversations. Hopefully, we're gonna find out. We're gonna figure out something.
We'll get Ivan.
But of course, that's
Ivan, as Saint-Etienne owner, is now basically being dragged into everything to do with the French league because he's obviously a good operator.
So yeah, hopefully we have a deal with the league at some point. You mentioned the Saudi league. I mean, they are becoming a dominant force as well. So hopefully at some point we welcome them. In the US, of course, the NFL is the biggest one, right? So in terms of revenue, so this is something that we will be hopefully exploring in the future.
NFL would be amazing. Final one from me before we do a crypto. Before we do a quick one.
Before we do a crypto.
This episode was brought to you by Crypto.com.
That'll be a nice segue.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, editors.
I was going to ask you, you've said quite a few times about like the boom that we had in 21, 22. My question to you is, I often think about bubbles as being good or bad.
Yeah.
Some actually lay the foundations in a really helpful way.
Yeah.
And some are just bluntly frivolous wastes of money.
Yeah.
Was the 21, 22 bubble of NFTs and crypto good or fundamentally damaging for the ecosystem?
I would be a bit more nuanced than that. I would say that it helped attract top talent in the space, capital. I think it helped educate about the concept of digital property, which is important not only for gaming but also for money, owning your money directly, which is the point with Bitcoin, right? So I think it was helpful in that way. I think with all bubbles, you have bad actors that come and that hurt the space, hurt the industry. Like for us, it was always about the very, very long term, like trying to build a product for decades to come, trying to build decade-long relationship with the leagues, trying to think about regulations with a very long view as well. So we never entered into like short-term behavior. So I was mentioning launching a token or trying about like short-term initiatives. And I think that was the right call. But to answer your question, to me it was a bit nuanced. So of course, bad actors that haunt the space, but at the same time, talent attraction, capital attraction, and education, which were good for the space.
No, I agree with that totally.
Let's do a quick one.
Game on, brother. You go first.
What's the biggest untapped revenue stream, do you think, in football at the moment?
I think it's probably like gaming. I think it's probably gaming. Gaming in a very broad sense.
Okay. Which athlete do you not have on the cap table that you'd love to have as an investor? Andy Roddick. I loved Roddick. He was my favourite.
Roger Federer.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Dream guest as well.
Yeah. Made more money on running. Amazing.
I mean, he's amazing. Like this combination of being very, very conservative, very smart about his investments.
Have you tried to get him?
We had conversations in the past, but it was also kind of linked to us getting into tennis, which we decided to postpone.
Why did you decide to postpone tennis?
Oh, for the very same reason of focus that I was mentioning. Like we have a very broad portfolio of partners right now. We have 3 sports with basketball, baseball, and football, and we want to make sure that we nail this before, going after more. And also it's an individual sport, so we would need to modify the gameplay a little bit to fit. So he's an amazing human being, and he has amazing partners around him as well.
Did you sit down with him?
So we talked mostly with his partners, but hopefully this is something that can happen in the future.
What's been harder, building the product or signing the deals?
I think building the product in the end of the day, even if we spent, it was very hard, and we spent a lot of time like getting there on the deal side. building the product is never-ending journey where you need to be iterating every single day and balancing judgment, taste, and data, and so it's of course much harder.
300 partners. What is the best run league in the world that you've worked with?
I cannot have a definitive judgment on the best run league because it's really beyond what I've seen closely, right? But when it comes to establishing partnerships and working hand in hand, I think we have an amazing relationship with the Premier League, of course. We have an amazing relationship with the NBA. We have an amazing relationship with the Bundesliga in Germany, with La Liga in Spain, because they have also the resources to allocate to their partners, right? So same with the MLB. I think the US leagues, they had this habit of investing in companies and betting in early stage gaming companies from like 15-20 years ago, so that there's more history there. But I think European leagues are catching up in their willingness to get there, and also in the resources they basically put on the table to get there.
We've talked about how much money you've raised. With hindsight, is there anything you've spent on that you wish you hadn't?
It's I've been public about this, but we signed all these deals, and when the market slowed down, like in 23, we had to renegotiate part of the deal. So I mean, if I could, I would have loved not to go through this process of signing and then renegotiating.
Because essentially you paid up too much.
Exactly,
is that able to renegotiate? Like, if I was a league, do I not just say?
I mean, it's then at some point there's a balance, because so it was very hard because we had to do it everywhere, right? Like because you don't want one league to take the effort and not the others, right? So it was a massive effort to sign them and then to rebalance these deals. So no, we went through this process.
Did people say no?
We had conversations that were longer or more difficult than others, but at the end of the day, like, everyone understood what happened. Everyone was very bullish on the category long term, but also acknowledging that, okay, it's going to maybe take a bit more time than what was anticipated. And still, I mean, last year, for fourth year for operations, we were like 150 million of cards have been sold on the platform, right? So, it's a meaningful number, right? So the potential is insane, but yeah, we had few insane years, and we needed to rebalance the deals after that. So I think that was the hard part.
I want to finish on one final thing, which is kind of future looking. Fast forward 10 years. Where's Sorare then? Leagues, players, size, what does that look like?
So, I mean, 10 years from here, I want to stick to my vision of allowing any sports fan to be a team owner or manager and enjoying all the emotions that a real team owner have. I want to do that with like many more sports, so like more than 10 sports, hopefully by then. And in the end, I want to be the place where, as a sports fan, not only you collect and you have fun, but also where you spend time with your friends and meet new friends. So that social element that is starting to exist in our product, we want to double on it, because in the end, like, sport is probably like one of the best ways to keep up with your friends. So you mentioned fantasy leagues just before, like that's one of the very good excuse to talk to your friends and to spend time with friends, and also to break barriers, social barriers, geographical barriers. And so like that's what we want to build longer term, like the place where you just enjoy your friends and interact and spend more time with them. So yeah, that's 10 years from here where we want to be.
I cannot thank you enough. This has been such a pleasure.
Thank you so much for having me. It was very good to chat. Thank you.